The next thing to do is to do a pressure test where we put some air from our compressor into each cylinder and check that it doesn't leak out. There is a procedure to doing that, which hopefully through the process we'll explain. If we do find a problem, then it may be the case that we do have to do the head gasket. So the first thing we're going to do this test is we're going to be removing this cover, which we've already started, and you've got the series of little bolts that go in the series points down there, and we're going to be removing the rocker cover, and of course you've got these bolts along the front and along the back. Once we've done that, we'll start on the next stage and I'll tell you what we're going to be doing. Right, so we've got the cam cover removed now, and what we're going to now do is remove the bolts around the rocker head cover so we can remove that. Right, so all the bolts are removed. All we need to do now is just take it off. That's good, the gaskets come off with that, and we can now get access to the cams. You can see that all the spark plugs are out, and this particular cylinder has got our testing hose in, where we're going to pressurise each cylinder with a low amount of pressure from our compressor, I think around about 2 bar, and what that will do is we'll see if any air is leaking through, but you have to have the valve shut on each cylinder to obviously make sure you get the pressure build up to see if it is leaking through the gasket. So that's what we have to do on each cylinder, is get the valves closed so we can then pressurise it and see if it holds its pressure, or if any water, any bubbles come up in the water, which would mean there is a leak on that cylinder. So that's what we're going to do next. So I just thought for interest while we're doing this, I'd show you this little adapter piece we've got for doing this pressure test on the cylinder. And basically it's an old spark plug that's been drilled out and then brazed or kind of welded onto this airline pipe, and then on the other end we've got the quick release connection. So yeah, it's something we've used over the years to do this, and that's what we're going to do. But I just thought I'd give you a little quick look at that so you can see just how we're doing that, and I thought it might be of interest what we were using to do it. We're now going to turn the engine over from the crankshaft. You can just about see that we're down on the crankshaft. You'd never turn it from here because you could damage the belt basically, so always do it from the crankshaft. It'll never work properly or to do damage. And what we're doing, we're on number cylinder 2, and so to make sure the valves are shut, we need these lobes both here and here to be right up, so we know that they are definitely off the valves, and those valves will definitely be closed, so we can do the pressure test. As you can see, it's just turning steadily as we turn the engine over.
That's the exhaust, that's the inlet camshaft.
Right, so as you've seen, the cams have been slowly turning as we've been turning the engine over. Here on the exhaust side, the cams are definitely closed, and on the inlet side, they are now coming round and they're closing as well. So we just need to go a little bit further to make sure they're definitely closed, which we're now at that point.
They're both on the edge of the base of the cam now.
Right, so now that we've checked that the valves are closed on both sides, we've just removed our little air attachment from the spark plug, and we just had a look down and checked with the screwdriver that the piston is also right up at the top. So now we've done that, we can remove that and put the air adapted attachment back into cylinder 2. So we're putting the airline adapter back into spark plug. We're just winding it in hand tight. Now that's in, before we do this test, I've got to go into the car and do this. Right, so once in the car, one of the things you need to do is to put the car into 3rd gear and make sure the handbrake's on really well, because obviously when you push pressure into the cylinder, it will try and turn the engine over. So that just makes sure the car can't move because your handbrake is on, and the engine can't turn over because it's in 3rd gear. Right, so now we've got the engine locked, the car being in gear and the handbrake on, so the pressure can't actually move the car. It's now time to do the test, and what we're going to be looking for is any air coming out of the inlet manifold or the cylinder block there, and any air coming through the exhaust. And the reason we picked cylinder 2 is because that's where the misfire started, although we think we've cured that because the coil wasn't quite right. The problems come about at the same time, so it's worth checking that cylinder first, although we are still going to check all of them. So we'll also be looking for any air coming out from the dipstick, the oil there, as well. That's what else we'll be looking for. So it's connected and the air is going in. Remember, a low pressure only around about 2 bar, and we're now just going to look round and check to see if we can see anything coming out. Right, so we're going to now check the inlet manifold and check we can't fill any air. You can hear a little bit because obviously the airline leaks a little bit, but what we're looking for is air coming out in places that it shouldn't do.
Nothing coming out. Yeah.
So we can't feel any air coming out of the block either, and we can't hear any water bubbling, though there's not full water in the system. The last thing is to fill the exhaust, and there is no draft there at all, so it's definitely not coming through the exhaust either. We're going to do that now on each cylinder and then come back to you. Right, so as I said at the back of the car, we're now on the next cylinder. We've gone to cylinder 1 now, although you wouldn't normally start with cylinder 2. We wanted to do that. We're now going to go through the firing order. Of course, we've made sure that we've turned the engine over so the valves are in the right position as we showed you, and it's just going to be that procedure on each cylinder, and then again going round and checking to see if we can find air leaking from them places that I said. So we'll get back to you at the end of that process. Right, so we've gone through all the cylinders now and done the check on each one, and we've actually come back to number 2 because although we said that slight hissing of air could be the airline, when we've done all the others there is no hissing of air, and you actually hear the pressure build up and the engine almost slightly jump as the pressure builds up. But on cylinder 2 you don't. There's a slight air leak and the compressor's cutting in and out. As you can hear, it's cutting in and out. So although we can't actually feel any air coming out from the cylinder block, the inlet or the outlet, you can clearly see that the air is leaking. So we do think that it is probably likely to be the head gasket. And as you can see, the screwdriver just rising there as we get the cylinder right to the top dead centre. So that is another way of checking it as we showed you on the first one. We're just going to check cylinder number 1 again now, just to confirm, because we think it might be the case that those two are the two that are perhaps leaking between each other and affecting our water system. So that's just a little double check to really confirm that our test is what we're suspecting.